Between 2011 and 2013, a single website sold well over $1 billion worth of drugs, and it never touched a single gram. It didn't grow them, didn't package them, didn't ship them, and never took on a cent of inventory risk. It simply connected the people selling drugs to the people buying them, handled the money, and took a cut of every single sale. In other words, the most notorious criminal enterprise of the internet age wasn't really a drug operation at all. It was a marketplace. It was Amazon for the black market. And like Amazon, the real money was never in the product. It was in the platform. This is the economics of running the Silk Road. Now, before we go any further, this is a business breakdown and a piece of history, not a how-to. Everything here is public record from court documents and journalism. What makes the Silk Road worth studying isn't the drugs. It's that a 26-year-old built one of the most efficient marketplace businesses of its era, aimed it at crime, and in doing so proved a lesson about who really profits that is far stranger than the crime itself. Here's the first thing to understand. The Silk Road did not sell drugs in the same way that eBay does not sell used cameras and Uber does not own a single car. It was a two-sided marketplace. On one side, thousands of vendors, dealers, who listed their products with photos, descriptions, and prices. On the other side, hundreds of thousands of buyers browsing categories, reading reviews, and clicking to purchase. The Silk Road itself owned nothing and shipped nothing. It just built the storefront, ran the checkout, and stood in the middle of every transaction taking its percentage. This is the single most powerful business model on the internet. Amazon, eBay, Airbnb, Uber, the App Store, none of them make the thing they sell. They own the marketplace where other people sell it, and they collect a toll on every exchange. Economists call it a take rate. And the Silk Road applied that exact model with ruthless clarity to the one market where it had never worked before. And it is worth pausing on how powerful that model is. The most valuable companies of the modern economy don't make the most things. They own the marketplace where other people's things get bought and sold. Amazon is a toll booth on other people's commerce. The App Store takes a cut of software it never wrote. A small automatic slice of somebody else's transaction, collected millions of times over, is quietly the most powerful money machine capitalism has ever produced. And a young man on the dark web built one of the purest examples of it that ever existed. Because here's the thing, a black market is, by its nature, a market with no trust. If you buy drugs from a stranger in an alley, there is no customer service, no refunds, no reviews, and a real chance you get robbed, arrested, or sold something fake. That lack of trust is the tax that has always made illegal commerce dangerous and inefficient. The genius of the Silk Road, and I use that word as an engineer would, not as a compliment, was that it solved the trust problem. And it did it by borrowing three tools from the legitimate technology world. The first tool was anonymity. The site ran on Tor, software originally built with US government funding to let people browse the internet without revealing their location or identity. By living inside that anonymous layer of the web, the Silk Road became a store that was extremely difficult to find, trace, or shut down. The second tool was the money. The entire marketplace ran on Bitcoin. At the time, a strange fringe experiment most people had never heard of. But it had one property that was perfect for this. It let two strangers move value directly to each other without a bank, without a name, and without a credit card statement a detective could later pull. But anonymity and untraceable money still don't solve the core problem. If you pay a stranger up front, what stops them from simply taking your Bitcoin and vanishing? That's where the third and most important tool came in, and it was pure marketplace design. The Silk Road held the buyer's payment in escrow. When you placed an order, your Bitcoin didn't go straight to the vendor. It went into an account controlled by the platform, and it was only released to the seller once you confirmed the product had actually arrived. On top of that, every vendor had a public reputation, a star rating and written reviews from previous buyers, exactly like the rating on an Amazon seller or an Uber driver. Think about what that combination did. Suddenly, buying illegal drugs felt less like a dangerous back alley deal and more like ordering from an online shop. There were product photos and detailed listings. There were reviews you could trust because the reviewer had actually received the goods. There was buyer protection through escrow. There was even a dispute resolution process in customer support. The Silk Road took the single most dangerous consumer transaction in the world and wrapped it in the smooth, reassuring, trustworthy experience of e-commerce. That is what made it explode. And explode it did. By some measures, the Silk Road became one of the fastest-growing online marketplaces anyone had ever seen. It launched in early 2011 as a rough experiment, and within 2 years, it had grown into a sprawling bazaar with thousands of listings and a global customer base, moving product to more than 100 countries. At its peak, researchers estimated the site was moving on the order of $15 million in sales a month. Even the most conservative studies, which put total sales closer to a couple hundred million than a full billion, still describe one of the most successful marketplaces, legal or illegal, of its moment. So let's talk about the money, because the numbers are staggering. Over its roughly 2.5 years of operation, prosecutors estimated that the Silk Road processed on the order of $1.2 billion in total sales, paid in more than 9 million Bitcoin. And out of all that volume, the platform itself collected commissions estimated at around $80 million. Let's actually do that math, because it reveals the whole model. The commission started low, a little over 6% of each sale, and then shifted to a tiered structure that climbed as high as 8 to 15%, especially on larger and cheaper transactions. So on every single order flowing through the site, somewhere between roughly 6 and 15 cents of every dollar peeled off automatically and landed in the platform's pocket. Multiply a 6 to 15% cut across hundreds of thousands of orders, month after month, and those tiny automatic slices compound into an enormous fortune for doing nothing but running the software sitting in the middle. And remember, this is nearly pure margin. The Silk Road had no factories, no warehouses, no trucks, no product to buy, no shipping to pay for. Its costs were servers, code, and a small staff. Every commission it collected was almost entirely profit. This is the same reason marketplace companies are some of the most valuable businesses on earth. The platform does a fraction of the work and captures a slice of everyone else's revenue. The Silk Road was that machine, running at full speed in the shadows. Now every marketplace needs someone running it. And here the story turns from economics into something stranger. The Silk Road was operated by a figure known only as Dread Pirate Roberts, a name borrowed from a film, chosen precisely because it suggested not one person, but a role that could be handed down, a mask anyone could wear. Behind that mask was a young American named Ross Ulbricht, who had launched the site in his 20s with a genuine, if radical, libertarian belief that people should be free to buy and sell whatever they wanted, and that a truly free market, beyond the reach of any government, could exist online. And by all accounts, he ran it like a startup founder. He obsessed over growth, over the user experience, over keeping vendors and buyers happy. He managed a small team, handled disputes, wrote to his community about the mission. He was, functionally, the CEO of a billion-dollar company, one that just happened to be a federal crime in almost every country on Earth. And he professionalized it to a startling degree. The Silk Road had busy forums, a guide for new sellers, and paid staff to handle support and settle disputes. Vendors competed on speed, quality, and reliability because a string of bad reviews could sink a seller overnight. Strip away the product, and the day-to-day looked far less like a backroom crime ring and far more like a small, fast-growing e-commerce startup. Metrics, growth targets, and a founder obsessed with the mission. But that is exactly where the fatal flaw of this particular business lived. A legitimate marketplace is protected by law. This one was hunted by it, and a hidden platform that depends entirely on the secrecy of one person at the top has a single catastrophic point of failure. That one person. Everything Dread Pirate Roberts built, worth a fortune and growing every day, rested on him never making a mistake. And inevitably, he made several. The cracks were almost mundane. In the very first weeks of promoting the site, posts had gone out that could be tied back to his real name and personal email, and investigators pulled on those threads for months. A package of forged IDs headed to his apartment was intercepted at the border, and the takedown itself was almost anticlimactic. In October 2013, agents cornered Ross Ulbricht in a San Francisco public library, distracted him, and grabbed his laptop while it was still open and logged in, before he could slam it shut. On that laptop was everything: the controls of the marketplace, the records, and a digital wallet holding roughly 144,000 Bitcoin, Worth around $87 million at the time, the empire and its treasure seized in a single moment over an open laptop. The Silk Road was shut down, and in 2015, Ross Ulbricht was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison, plus 40 years, with no possibility of parole, along with a judgment ordering him to forfeit more than $180 million. For running a marketplace, he received one of the harshest sentences imaginable, driven in part by unproven allegations that he had tried to order violence against people he saw as threats. Allegations he was never actually convicted of, but which hung over the entire case. So who in the end actually profited from the Silk Road? And this is where the economics deliver their final, brutal twist. Start with the man at the top. Ross Ulbricht's platform collected around $80 million in commissions, but he never got to enjoy it. He spent more than 11 years in a prison cell, his fortune seized, his life effectively over, until, in a genuinely extraordinary turn, he was granted a full presidential pardon in January 2025 and walked free. He is the rarest kind of case. The founder who built the machine took every ounce of the legal risk and only escaped a life sentence through a stroke of political fortune that almost no one could have predicted. Then there are the vendors, the actual dealers. They made their margins, sale by sale, but they were scattered, hunted individually, and many were eventually caught and prosecuted in their own right. For most of them, it was a dangerous living, not a fortune. There were even the crooked cops. 2 of the very federal agents assigned to investigate the Silk Road, one from the DEA, one from the Secret Service, secretly turned on the operation for their own gain. One posed as a corrupt insider and extorted the site while selling it information. The other quietly drained hundreds of thousands of dollars in Bitcoin out of accounts he was supposed to be policing. Both were eventually caught and both went to prison themselves. That is how much money was sloshing through this thing. Even the people sent to shut it down couldn't keep their hands out of the till. And here is the clearest proof that the idea was always bigger than the man. The marketplace did not die with him. Within weeks of the takedown, a new site calling itself Silk Road 2.0 rose to take its place. When that one fell, others climbed up behind it. Bigger, bolder, more sophisticated. One successor grew to dwarf the original many times over before it too was seized. Ross Ulbricht had not really invented a website. He had proven a template. And once a template like that is loose in the world, no single arrest can unprove it. But the single biggest winner in the entire saga, the player who walked away with more money than Ulbricht, the vendors and the thieving agents combined, was the one entity that never sold a thing, never bought a thing, and never touched the drugs at all: the government. Because here is the part almost nobody predicted. When authorities seized the Bitcoin connected to the Silk Road, the coins on Ulbricht's laptop and later, tens of thousands more clawed back from hackers who had stolen from the site, they were sitting on a pile of a then-fringe digital currency. And over the years that followed, the price of Bitcoin did not just rise, it exploded, climbing more than 100-fold. Remember, when the Silk Road launched, Bitcoin was barely worth $1 and had almost no real-world use. This one-drug marketplace became its first true economy. For a while, an enormous share of all Bitcoin activity on Earth flowed straight through it, which sets up the final irony. The government seized those coins and simply held them. And that is a huge part of why the state ended up so staggeringly rich when the currency it had confiscated later went to the moon. The consequences are almost hard to believe. In one seizure alone, the US government recovered around 50,000 Bitcoin tied to the Silk Road that had ballooned in value to over $3 billion. In another, roughly 69,000 more. By the time the dust settled, the government was sitting on Silk Road-linked Bitcoin worth billions, with courts eventually clearing the way to sell around $6.5 billion of it. Sit with that for a moment. Ross Ulbricht built the marketplace and earned around $80 million in commissions and got life in prison for it. The government shut the marketplace down and walked away with billions. The house, as always, won. It just happened to be the biggest house of all. So, should you want to own something like the Silk Road? As a piece of business design, it is honestly a 10 out of 10. A pure marketplace with an escalating take rate, near zero costs, exponential growth, and a genuinely clever solution to the age-old problem of trust between strangers. Ross Ulbricht understood the platform model as well as almost any Silicon Valley founder of his generation. Take that exact same blueprint, The marketplace, the escrow, the reviews, the take rate, pointed at legal goods, and you don't get a prison sentence. You get eBay, you get Etsy, you get Amazon, you get one of the greatest fortunes of the modern age. But pointed at crime, and the math changes completely. Because in the illegal version, you carry all the risk, all the liability, and all the exposure, while a far more powerful player waits patiently at the end of the line to take everything. The marketplace, the treasure, and your freedom. Worth owning. As a legal marketplace, a 10. As what the Silk Road actually was, call it a 1. The genius of the model was real, but the lesson underneath it is the oldest one in this whole channel. The person doing the work and taking the risk is almost never the one who keeps the money. And when the business is a crime, the house that collects in the end isn't a landlord or a bank or a liquor company. It's the state itself. The Silk Road proved that the marketplace is the most powerful money machine ever built. And then it proved just as clearly exactly who ends up owning the machine. I'm Mogul Math. Pick a business. We'll do the math.